Sometimes the hardest truths are the ones left unsaid. Have you ever walked into a room and sensed that someone didn't quite like you, but their smile and polite words told a different story? It's in those small gestures, the fleeting moments, the subtle shifts in energy, that the truth begins to reveal itself. What if I told you that these unspoken emotions are actually easier to recognize than we think? Today we're going to uncover 7 powerful signs that someone dislikes you but is keeping it hidden, all while looking through the lens of Buddhist wisdom. We'll explore how to spot these hidden signals and, more importantly, how to respond with mindfulness, compassion, and inner peace. Ready to unravel the invisible threads of human connection? Let's begin. Sign 1. Overly polite behavior. At times, excessive politeness can be a shield, hiding true emotions beneath a mask of courtesy. In Buddhism, we are taught to look beyond surface-level interactions and pay attention to the energy behind someone's words. If someone is being overly polite, always saying please and thank you, or acting extra considerate, it may seem harmless at first, but it could be a sign that they are hiding something deeper. When their words sound insincere or forced, like they're saying the right things but without genuine warmth, it could signal discomfort or even hidden dislike. Buddhism encourages us to observe these moments with a mindful and open heart, without jumping to conclusions, while understanding that not all emotions are expressed directly. Sign 2. Avoiding eye contact. In many cultures, eye contact is not just a way to communicate. It's a direct connection between two people. In Buddhism, the eyes are believed to be windows to the soul, reflecting our true feelings and intentions. When someone avoids making eye contact, it often signals discomfort or an emotional distance. It might seem like a small thing, but if it becomes a pattern, it's worth paying attention to. This behavior can indicate that the person is trying to hide their true emotions, possibly due to feelings of discomfort, disinterest, or even dislike. It's important, however, to understand that not everyone avoids eye contact for negative reasons. It could also be a sign of introversion, shyness, or a cultural difference. In Buddhism, we are encouraged to look beyond the surface and approach these moments with patience and mindfulness. Instead of jumping to conclusions, we can use these cues as opportunities to be more present, compassionate, and aware of both our feelings and theirs. Sign 3. Minimal engagement in conversations. One of the most telling signs that someone may be hiding their true feelings is when they offer minimal engagement in conversations. In Buddhist practice, communication is about more than just words. It's about connection, presence, and the exchange of energy. When someone consistently responds with short answers, avoids asking questions, or seems distracted during a conversation, it could be a sign that they're not fully invested in the interaction. This can be particularly evident when the conversation is about personal matters or topics that require a deeper emotional response. Instead of engaging with enthusiasm, they may appear disinterested, as if they're simply going through the motions. Buddhism teaches us to be mindful of how we interact with others and to recognize when something feels out of alignment. If someone is avoiding connection in this way, it may indicate they're uncomfortable or trying to protect themselves emotionally. It's a reminder for us to approach the situation with compassion, seeking understanding rather than assuming the worst. Sign 4. Inconsistent body language. Body language often speaks louder than words. In fact, much of what we communicate is done through nonverbal cues, whether we are conscious of it or not. In Buddhist practice, we are taught to observe not only what is said, but also the subtle movements, gestures, and posture that accompany every interaction. Our bodies hold truths that our minds may not be ready to express, and when words and body language are out of sync, it can be a clear indication that something deeper is at play. Someone might tell you, everything is fine, but their body is telling a different story. Perhaps their arms are crossed tightly in front of their chest, or they are leaning away from you as if to create physical distance. These seemingly small actions are actually powerful clues to their true feelings. They may be trying to protect themselves emotionally, or they could be feeling disconnected from you, even if their words say otherwise. This inconsistency between what's being verbally communicated and the body's reaction is often a sign that the person is hiding something, possibly discomfort, irritation, or even dislike. Buddhism teaches us to be mindful of such discrepancies in behavior. When we notice that someone's body language doesn't match their words, it's essential not to jump to conclusions too quickly. Instead, we're encouraged to observe with patience and curiosity, asking ourselves, what might be causing this disconnect? Often, this is an opportunity to practice compassion and understanding, rather than making assumptions or taking the person's behavior personally. The body is a reflection of the mind, and just as thoughts are layered and complex, so too are our physical responses. Inconsistent body language may also reveal an internal struggle the other person is experiencing. Perhaps they are afraid of confronting their true feelings, or they don't know how to express their discomfort without causing conflict. It might even be a reflection of past experiences that make it difficult for them to trust or connect with others. As Buddhists, we are taught that everything is interconnected. Our responses to the world around us are shaped by our past experiences, emotions, and internal struggles. Recognizing that the person's actions might stem from something unrelated to you can help us meet their behavior with understanding rather than judgment. We must be mindful of our own reactions. How do we respond when we notice inconsistency in someone's body language? Do we feel anxious or defensive, assuming that the person dislikes us? Or do we approach the situation with openness, recognizing that there may be an underlying cause that we are not privy to? Buddhism encourages us to practice self-awareness and to notice how our emotions are triggered in these situations. Are we projecting our own fears or insecurities onto the other person? By doing so, we can create space for a more balanced and compassionate response. We learn to observe body language as a form of communication that tells a deeper, often unspoken story. We can then use these moments as opportunities for connection, not by pushing the other person to reveal their feelings, but by holding space for them to feel safe enough to do so when they are ready. Rather than letting body language create further tension or distance, we can approach it as a moment of awareness, an invitation to foster understanding and compassion for both ourselves and others. This process helps create a more harmonious relationship where both parties can begin to communicate more authentically and openly. Sign 5. Subtle signs of frustration. Frustration often manifests in subtle ways, and in Buddhism, we are encouraged to observe both the external signs and the internal emotions that accompany them. Sometimes someone might not outright express their anger or discomfort, but instead their frustration leaks through in small, almost imperceptible actions. These subtle signs can be difficult to notice at first, but once we become aware of them, we can recognize when someone is holding back their true feelings, especially when those feelings are negative. You might notice someone clenching their jaw or grinding their teeth during a conversation, or they might take a deep sigh every time you say something that seems to annoy them. Other signs could include sharp changes in tone of voice, brief moments of irritability, or sudden silence that feels tense. These are often signs of frustration, emotionally charged responses that the person might not be fully expressing, but their body is telling a different story. In Buddhism, we learn to be mindful of such physical cues, recognizing them as signals of inner turmoil or emotional buildup. Instead of assuming the person is simply being rude or dismissive, we're invited to look deeper and understand that their frustration may be coming from unresolved emotions or stresses that have nothing to do with us directly. Buddhism also teaches us to recognize that emotions like frustration are temporary and impermanent. When we notice subtle signs of frustration, it's essential not to react impulsively. Instead, we should practice patience and allow the person to process their emotions at their own pace. Often, their frustration might be tied to something external, like a stressful situation at work, or even an internal struggle they are having with themselves. Their feelings of discomfort or irritation may not be directly related to us, and it is crucial to hold space for that understanding without immediately taking offense or jumping to conclusions. It's important to check in with ourselves. Are we creating an environment where frustration is more likely to arise? Are we being mindful in our interactions, allowing the other person to express their feelings openly, or are we unintentionally adding to their stress? Sometimes frustration can be a result of a lack of communication or unmet expectations. Buddhism teaches us that being aware of these emotional shifts, not just in others but in ourselves, allows us to approach situations with greater clarity and empathy. Instead of ignoring or suppressing the signs of frustration, we can view them as a cue to engage more mindfully, allowing both parties to address the underlying causes in a calm and balanced way. By approaching these subtle signs of frustration with mindfulness, we can break the cycle of hidden emotions. Instead of letting frustration build up between us and another person, we can use it as an opportunity for dialogue and understanding. It's a chance to ask open, non-judgmental questions and to express empathy for their experience. The practice of being present with these emotions, both in ourselves and in others, can transform frustration into an opportunity for growth, deeper connection, and resolution. This Buddhist approach encourages us to cultivate compassion and awareness, not just for others, but also for our own emotional responses, creating a space where frustration no longer lingers in silence, but is instead acknowledged and transformed into understanding. Sign 6. Backhanded compliments or passive-aggressive comments. One of the most insidious signs that someone may dislike you but is hiding it can be found in their words, specifically in backhanded compliments or passive-aggressive remarks. These comments may appear innocent or even flattering on the surface, but beneath them lies a hidden layer of criticism or disdain. In Buddhism, we are taught to be mindful of our speech, understanding that words have power, not only to affect others, but also to shape our own minds. When someone gives you a compliment that feels more like a disguised jab, it can create confusion and tension, as their true feelings are concealed beneath the veil of politeness. For instance, a comment like, "You look great for someone your age," or "I never would have expected you to pull that off," might sound positive at first, but the underlying tone reveals an element of judgment or condescension. These types of passive-aggressive remarks can often be subtle, leaving you questioning whether the person truly meant what they said or if there was a hidden insult. This is where mindfulness becomes crucial. By paying attention not just to the words, but to the energy behind them, we can discern whether there's an underlying negative sentiment that the person is trying to mask. Buddhism teaches us that speech should come from a place of kindness and clarity. When we are mindful of our words, we can communicate more effectively and harmoniously, avoiding the subtle harm that passive-aggressive language can cause. However, when someone uses backhanded compliments or passive-aggressive remarks, it can be a sign that they are unwilling or unable to express their true feelings openly. This might be due to fear, insecurity, or a desire to avoid direct conflict. They may want to criticize or distance themselves without taking full responsibility for their emotions. Instead of responding to these comments defensively or retaliating in kind, Buddhism encourages us to practice patience and non-reactivity. We are reminded that these remarks are often more about the person delivering them than about us. They are likely a reflection of their own inner conflict, frustration, or unresolved feelings. By observing their words with awareness, we can choose to respond with kindness, clarity, and a willingness to understand their deeper concerns. Rather than escalating the situation or getting caught up in the emotional charge of passive aggression, we can approach it with an open mind and a compassionate heart. In these moments, it's important to check in with ourselves as well. Are we taking these backhanded compliments personally, or are we able to recognize them for what they are, subtle expressions of discomfort or resentment? Through mindfulness, we can detach from the sting of such remarks and avoid letting them trigger negative emotions. We can also consider whether we might unknowingly be contributing to the dynamic by not addressing the underlying tension directly. Buddhism teaches us that open, honest communication is essential for healthy relationships. When we face passive-aggressive behavior, we can choose to either confront it with compassion or to create a space where the person feels safe enough to express their true feelings more openly. By understanding the deeper emotional currents behind backhanded compliments and passive-aggressive comments, we can respond with greater wisdom and compassion, creating an opportunity for healing and deeper understanding in the relationship. These moments become an invitation to practice mindful speech and to engage in communication that fosters honesty, respect, and emotional clarity. Sign 7. Avoiding you without explanation. Perhaps one of the most obvious yet often confusing signs that someone may dislike you but is hiding it is when they begin to avoid you without offering any explanation. This can be particularly challenging because the avoidance is often subtle, an extra layer of distance that doesn't come with any clear justification. In Buddhism, we are reminded of the impermanence of all things, and that emotional states, like our relationships, can fluctuate. However, when someone begins to withdraw without offering a reason, it can leave us feeling unsettled, unsure of what has changed and why the person has distanced themselves. The act of avoidance can come in many forms: declining invitations, taking longer to respond to messages, or simply not making an effort to engage when you're in the same space. At first, this might seem like a minor shift, but over time, it can become more noticeable and harder to ignore. In Buddhism, we are encouraged to observe these moments with awareness and mindfulness. We know that people sometimes distance themselves due to their own emotional struggles, fear, or discomfort. The avoidance might not necessarily be about us, but rather something they are experiencing within themselves that makes it difficult for them to connect. The challenge, however, is when this avoidance isn't explained. When someone pulls away without giving us a clear reason, it can feel like they are withholding the truth from us, and this creates confusion and uncertainty. Buddhism teaches that we should meet these moments with patience, accepting that not everyone will be ready or able to articulate their feelings. Avoidance can sometimes be a form of self-protection, where the person feels unable or unwilling to communicate their discomfort directly. It may also indicate that they are unsure of how to address their negative feelings, or perhaps they are simply avoiding conflict. Instead of reacting with frustration or trying to force an explanation, Buddhism encourages us to practice self-reflection and compassion. Why does their avoidance affect us so deeply? Often it's not just about the person pulling away, but about our own attachment to the idea of a smooth relationship. Buddhism teaches us to let go of expectations and to approach all relationships with equanimity. When someone avoids us without explanation, it's an opportunity to practice non-attachment and to refrain from creating unnecessary stories about their behavior. In these situations, it can be tempting to assume the worst, that the person dislikes us or that something is wrong. However, The Buddhist path invites us to sit with the uncertainty, to let go of the need for immediate answers, and to recognize that the other person's emotional journey may be different from our own. They might be avoiding us because they are dealing with their own internal struggles, or perhaps they are unsure how to confront their feelings. Instead of focusing on their avoidance, we can turn inward, asking ourselves how we can maintain our own peace despite the situation. Buddhism encourages us to respond with empathy, creating space for the person to return when they are ready, without pushing them for an explanation. If their avoidance continues and we feel it is impacting the relationship, mindfulness can guide us to gently address the issue without attachment, respecting their boundaries while expressing our own feelings. This practice of open-heartedness and non-attachment allows us to navigate even the most difficult moments in relationships with grace and understanding, fostering compassion for both ourselves and others. As we've explored today, the signs that someone may dislike us but is hiding it can be subtle yet powerful. By practicing mindfulness and compassion, two core principles of Buddhism, we can navigate these hidden dynamics with clarity and peace. Remember, not everything is as it seems on the surface, and it's essential to look deeper, understanding that others may be struggling with their own emotional barriers. By responding with kindness, we create space for growth, understanding, and authentic connection. If you've found these insights helpful, be sure to subscribe to Buddhism Pathways for more teachings that help you live with more awareness, wisdom, and compassion. Every relationship, no matter how challenging, is an opportunity to practice the profound teachings of Buddhism in real life. So let's continue on this journey together, uncovering the hidden layers of human interaction and embracing each moment with mindfulness and love. Thank you for being a part of this path of discovery. Until next time, stay present, stay compassionate, and keep walking your Buddhist pathway.